listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about Arkansas. So, Lauren,
Yes, Kenzie.
let's get scary.
Hope you had a great 4th. This will go out after the 4th of July, though we were recording before.
Yeah, well, the House just passed that bill, so I don't feel like very patriotic when people's rights are getting taken away.
Well, that's why I said we're celebrating hanging out with each other like friends and having the day off of work. That doesn't apply to you, but it applies to us who are working.
I am working.
Well, you are, but you have the summer off.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to work tomorrow anyways.
So I still have the day off, technically.
That's true. See? So celebrating the day off, celebrating hanging out with friends.
Yeah, because I feel so unpatriotic right now.
Yeah.
Although, I tell you what, though, if it was an Olympic year, I'd be in there like, yeah, USA!
Well, because we like our athletes.
Yeah. But celebrating ourselves, oh no.
And the Olympics is kind of like a come together thing. So we support the Olympics.
Yeah, I guess. I wish we could have come together like we can in sporting events for things that actually matter a little bit more to our livelihood.
I know.
Like, I love the Olympics as much as the next person, but, you know, I've put America in timeout.
Yeah.
It doesn't get to celebrate is birthday this year.
Yeah.
It's not being nice.
So on a completely different topic, because
But if you did celebrate or did just hang out with friends on your day off, whatever you decide to do, we hope you had a good one.
and traveled and did it safely and left with all of the same digits that you entered the day with.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, phone number.
Not quite.
What's your different topic?
Okay, so did I tell you about the first time I heard about the elevators at work recently?
Yes.
So where my coworker was like, I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but the elevators got stuck.
Yeah.
So with that really bad storm,
It got stuck.
And I heard the beeping and I just walked by and I said, someone is going to help them, but it will not be me.
Do you know that you told me this story?
I do,
Okay.
but they didn't know.
Okay, well, you got to preface that. 'Cause
Okay,
here
I know I told you this, but
Here I'm thinking like, oh my God, she's becoming me.
no, I remembered.
Okay.
And so I was telling all of my coworkers and they kept laughing at me and they were like, well, you're never taking that. And I said, you are correct. I will never be in the elevators.
I mean, I wouldn't either, especially after something like that. But I don't know. When I was moving my dad in, we had to go up to the 17th floor.
Yeah, no.
It wasn't too fun the first time, but after a while, I was so tired. It was just an excuse to sit down. So I was like, okay with it.
No. I mean, I wouldn't have gone up 17 flights of stairs, but that's why I wouldn't have been there at all.
You did 16. What makes you think you can't do 17?
I don't know.
Ow, oh, my knees.
And that's why you couldn't do the stairs.
Well, yeah, but like we always say, our reasons for being afraid are very different.
Yeah.
So we're both afraid to get stuck, that's for sure. But why is different. Although eventually I think we'd both come together and be like, we're up high and we're stuck in a small space.
Like literally the worst of both situations.
Our anxieties would join forces and become one massive anxiety.
Unstoppable.
My story is very lighthearted.
Oh, good.
And so
mine's not.
I figured whenever I go onto the sources and I see Murderpedia, I assume it's not going to be very bright and cheery.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not very bright and cheery.
But that's also why I wanted to make sure the sound effects work. I want to try to see if I can use them in my story.
Ooh, okay.
Because my story is a cryptid, so.
Oh, we love a good cryptid.
Yeah. I did see Les Mis. I stayed awake through the whole thing.
Good job.
I cried.
So it was amazing.
Indescribable.
Ugh,
You have to go.
I want to so badly.
I think it's over, though.
Yeah, probably.
But it was outstanding. I got goosebumps. I cried at the end because I always cry at the end of Les Mis.
Yeah.
And then when everyone was coming out and clapping, I kept crying. Especially once there's like 4 little kids that like are in the musical. When
Yeah.
they came out to do their bow.
Oh,
I almost. The only thing keeping me together was reminding myself that I am in public and that the lights are going to come back on and people are going to be able to see me.
So they can't see you having your complete just like breakdown.
I mean, I did the whole to like keep myself from full out fucking sobbing. Because as soon as the kids come out, I just want to be like, oh my God, yeah, you guys did such a great job. I'm so proud of you.
Oh.
And then like the other main characters started to come out and I was like, you also did a really good job. You worked so hard and it was just amazing. And I'm just like really trying to keep myself from bawling my eyes out. Because it's like once it started, if it was just roll credits, I would have been able to collect myself.
Right.
But
But
then,
it's
like,
the people.
it's people, and you have this emotional, like, they're proud, you're proud, you all had this collective experience together. And
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Like a collective great experience.
exactly. And I was just like, keep your shit
Keep your cool.
together because you will look like a fucking maniac and people will ask you, are you okay? And you're going to have to look at them as you're sobbing and be like, I'm fine. I'm just so overcome with emotion.
I'm a theater kid.
Yeah. Something was healed inside me that night.
Oh, so happy to hear that.
It was everything now is going to be in comparison to that.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was outstanding.
Oh, amazing.
I just had to throw that in there.
No, I'm glad you did.
Also, I do know it's Arkansas, not Arkansas.
Oh, yeah. Oh, one of my coworkers today, he was like, Lauren, I listened to your Ohio episode. And I was like, oh, and he was like, I was in hysterics listening to you pronounce county names.
See?
And I was like, we try. And he's like, oh, yeah, the counties were weird. And he named one of them. I said, I don't remember what we talked about in Ohio, but I know I did not say that word. And he goes, no, you said it so wrong.
Have we done Ohio yet? Must not have been this one.
It must have been one. I mean, we've done it at least 3 times.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've done it this go around.
I don't think so.
But he listened to one of them
Yeah.
and just thought our pronunciations were very funny.
Well, here's the thing. Usually when I look at it, there are a lot of times that I think I can read it
Yeah,
because I'm assuming, which I guess, you know what? This is on me.
that's on you.
I'm taking responsibility.
So stupid for assuming we can pronounce the names how they're
Not
spelled.
only that, but my fault for assuming it would be phonetic.
Right, exactly.
I should never have assumed that.
No,
I should have known better.
you should have.
But if, like I said, if your name is SYMTH for Smith, but it's Smythe, I'm going to fucking say Smith.
Well, with a Y, I would say Smythe.
You would say Smythe,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no E.
So?
I feel like the E would be the thing that makes the Y the I.
No.
Or the... Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Because that's why it's Smith.
Yeah,
There's no-
SMITH.
Yeah.
Smith. So
But
Y
Y can be-
Smythe.
I don't...
Smythe.
Or Smith, because it can make the I or E sound. It can do
But
both.
if you're looking at MY, that's my. So Smythe. Smythe.
Oh, I did it SYMTH.
Well, then that would be Symph.
Okay, if that interaction right there doesn't get rid of our haters for understanding why we pronounce shit wrong, I don't know what else to tell you because that alone should explain everything.
Yeah.
I can't even come back from that. I can't even try to make up some stupid reason. You know why? Dyslexia. So
Okay, so you still came up with a reason.
if you come for us in our comments, I'm coming for you with the dyslexia and making you feel bad for making fun of my disability.
I'm just going to start reading this fact about Arkansas.
Okay.
Okay. One of the deadliest racial conflicts in U.S. history, the Elaine Massacre, involved white mobs attacking African American sharecroppers who were organizing for better pay. Estimates of the number of African Americans killed range into the hundreds, with reports also detailing mass arrests of black people, the use of torture to extract confessions, and biased trials by all white juries. While 12 African Americans were initially sentenced to death, they were eventually acquitted after legal efforts led by the NAACP and African American attorney Scipio A. Jones.
Arkansas has a disturbing history of lynchings, with racial terror lynchings used as methods to suppress the African American community. Numerous racially motivated lynchings occurred in the state, with one of the deadliest mass lynchings happening in St. Charles in 1904, where 13 African Americans were killed over 3 days. Many killings went unreported, but there are detailed reports for 231 lynchings of black men in the state from 1860 to 1930.
Jeez.
Yeah.
As early as 1843, Arkansas enacted laws denying entry to free blacks and later required them to leave the state or face being sold into slavery. Some counties and towns in Arkansas saw a decline in their African American population due to these policies. And these were the sundown towns.
Yeah. So as I was looking this stuff up, I found Encyclopedia of Arkansas.
Oh?
And so it talked about these different things and what it was like in Arkansas. I have to read you this sentence
Oh, God.
because
Okay.
it blew my mind. By 1970,
1970. Okay.
when sundown towns were at their peak, more than half of all incorporated communities inside the traditional South probably excluded African Americans, including more than 100 towns in the northwestern two-thirds of Arkansas.
Wow.
1970.
Yeah.
Peak. That blew my mind.
The sundown town thing is so scary.
Yes. Yes, it is. So I have a fact for you.
Oh, okay.
I answer a question that you had a while ago.
Okay.
I'm going to read this one. I'm going to read this one first. It makes sense how I got there.
Okay.
Okay. The Little Rock Nine were 9 Black students from segregated high schools in Little Rock, Arkansas. In September 1957, they volunteered to attend the all-white Little Rock Central High School after the state NAACP, led by Daisy Bates, won a federal court order to integrate the school. The students faced severe harassment, threats of violence, and intimidation from white parents, students, and organized white supremacist groups. Much of the opposition focused on spreading fear that integration would lead to interracial relationships, which they saw as a threat to white society. And when it was Dwight Eisenhower at the time who was president, and he sent in like the National Guard to pretty much what they had to do a lot of the times when they started integrating schools. They had to do it for Ruby Bridges, but the sick thing about that is that she was fucking 6 years old.
Yeah.
Not that it is any more okay for high school students, but like,
yeah.
Anyway, so as I was reading the Wikipedia page and reading about it and like, you know, what the different people in their respective parties, what they did. So like what the governor did, which like when essentially the federal government forced them to be like, no, you have to integrate these schools. Like you don't have a choice. He closed schools, public schools for an entire year, or high schools anyway.
Wow.
Yeah. And it got me thinking about the question you had asked about when Democrats and Republicans flipped.
Oh, yeah.
I found the answer.
And?
So basically, which I kind of figured, so it used to be that the Republican Party was very liberal and that the Democrats were known to be conservatives.
Right.
Okay. By the Civil War, in the North were Republicans who wanted to free Black people from slavery. The South were Democrats, technically. Okay. So more conservative. They had the like more farming focused society or whatever. Right. Okay. Post-Civil War happens. And the Republican Party began to change because, remember, they're the liberals, because a lot of the Northern industrialist people, so like you had the Civil War, you had Reconstruction, and then the Industrial Revolution. They all kind of happened one after the other. And so that's when you got people like Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, all that kind of good stuff. The first made millionaires in the country. Right. Well, now they're rich and they want to stay rich. And so because of that, because there's now more wealthy people in the Republican Party, they're like, oh, well, you know, we got Black people freed from slavery. That's all they need. They don't actually need any other rights. That's enough. We've done them enough. They don't need our help anymore. Terrible. And so, but it's still technically the Republican is liberal, Democrat is conservative. Like that's still the thing. But this is when it's starting to like slowly, it wasn't like an overnight thing. It was like a slow change.
Yeah, as things typically are.
But this is when it started, when those Northerners who were rich and had a lot of money and didn't want to give that up were technically in the Republican Party and they stayed that way. That's when things kind of started to swing the other way. And so this is from studentsofhistory.com. It said, when the economy crashed in 1929, the Republican president, Herbert Hoover, opted not to intervene, earning him and his party the ire of American public. And he was a Republican, technically the liberal side. Franklin D. Roosevelt, a Democrat, sensed the need for change, and he campaigned on the promise of government intervention, which is what we know of it now, financial assistance and concern for the welfare of people. And he won, obviously, and he helped get us out of that. So both Southern Democrats and Republicans both opposed early civil rights movements, while Northern Democrats and Republicans began to support the legislation. And so I think it was in like the 1960s. In 1964, Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law. In the 1964 election, Republican candidate Barry Goldwater publicly opposed the new law, arguing that it expanded the power of the federal government to a dangerous level. It was this argument that led to a final decisive switch. Black voters who had historically been loyal to the Republican Party because of the 1966 Civil Rights Act had already been switching to the Democratic Party. So really, I guess you could say it was recent.
Yeah. I mean, as far as history goes.
Right. So, slow start as more rich people intricated. What's the word?
Integrated?
Not integrated.
Infiltrated.
Thank you. Infiltrated the Republican Party. That's when things started to switch. And it's,
Interesting.
So there you go.
There you go.
Started from the Civil War and gradually over time happened and was pretty much solidified by the 1960s.
Oh.
So there's your long-winded answer.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. We still have a couple more facts left.
Yeah. So the KKK has a history in Arkansas, with its first appearance occurring shortly after African Americans gained the right to vote. The KKK used violence and intimidation to suppress Black voting and political power, and a resurgence of activity occurred in the 1920s and again in response to school integration in the 1950s.
The integration stuff is crazy to me because, Ruby Bridges happened in New Orleans, which is where my dad's from. And it happened in 1959, which is the year my dad was born.
Yeah.
And, when you look at time by, the age of people you know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've said that before. It's just wild.
It's always so crazy to think about that this really was not that long ago.
No, not at all.
So, Arkansas also played a role in the forced removal of Native American tribes through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. This act led to the relocation of tribes like the Choctaw, Muskogee Creeks, Chickasaw, Seminoles, and Cherokees to Indian Territory, which is modern-day Oklahoma.
Interesting.
There's a marker in some town in Arkansas, I can't remember the name, that it was a major pathway.
Oh, okay.
A major route, I guess, that they were forced to walk. So,
I mean, can we be surprised that this is the dark history of a southern state?
I mean, pretty much at this point, it's safe to assume that when it comes to dark history for your state, it's usually starts with Native Americans and removing them. And depending on your state, depends on whether you removed them a long time ago or you removed them because of an act signed by a president. So really, it just kind of depends.
Yeah.
And then a lot also, again, depending on how long your state's been around, slavery, Black people rights.
Yeah.
Rights of just people of color in general.
Yeah.
Depending. Some have more focus on Native Americans because there's maybe a more predominant population there versus there's some states like the ones that tend to be in the South that have more dark history on Black Americans and all the things that they went through by having to live in the South.
Yeah.
So
there's Arkansas.
No one is safe.
All right, Mackenzie, what tale do you have today?
In the far southwest corner of Arkansas. The farthest corner you can go.
Which corner?
You know where the little lip thingy is? At the bottom of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
as far as you can go.
Exactly. It's basically where Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas meet. In fact, that area is called Texarkana.
Ah.
And there's a town in Texas and Arkansas, kind of like Kansas City, how there's one in Kansas, one in Missouri, and they're split by a river.
Yeah.
This isn't split by a river, but same idea. There's one
All three of those states touch.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, yeah.
You hadn't hit your head. We had it so perfect.
Oh.
I was going to fling it into your hand as you stretched.
Oh, man. Where'd you put it?
It's down on the ground now. Close to my feet. Down there. I can't bend anymore. Here, grab my ankle and I'll pull you.
Oh, got it.
We had to get our handy-dandy map.
Yeah, okay. So, you see Arkansas?
Yeah.
Okay, it's right.
I was thinking Alabama.
I'm glad we pulled the map out. I can't hold that. It's right there.
I see, yes. Where Louisiana and Texas and Arkansas all touch.
So right here, right at the tippy tip, that's Texarkana.
Okay.
There's one in Texas, one in Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So glad we went on that journey together.
Yes. And there's also in Texarkana a small town. Emphasis on the small. that lies along Highway 71 and not far from the Red River. Okay. When I looked online and watched the news report about this thing, they said Fouke.
Okay.
Fouke. Fouke.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
It's definitely not Fouke.
Get the Fouke out of here.
Yeah. So, Fouke,
Okay.
that's the name of the town, is located in central Miller County with a total area of 1.4 square miles of land.
Oh my goodness. That's teeny tiny.
As of the 2020 census, 808 people reside in Fouke.
That's a lot of people on a teeny tiny part.
And yeah, definitely very
Yeah.
small. It was funny though, because on Wikipedia, it was like in 2020, it was 808. And then like as of 2025, it was 810. I was like, oh, were 2 people born? Did 2 people move in? Like,
Did anyone have kids?
right, exactly. So, and they were shot into a worldwide spotlight when reports began creeping up of an ape-like, Bigfoot-esque type creature lurking around in the early 1970s.
Okay, so we got another Bigfoot type creature.
Bigfoot-esque, ape-like.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best way I found to describe it. It all began with Bobby Ford on May 2nd, 1971, or so the townsfolk of Fouke thought at the time. That was hard.
The town's Fouke.
Or I said folk,
No, you did.
but I had to go really slowly. Bobby Ford, 25, and his family had just moved into their new home when they were supposedly attacked by a large hairy animal with fire-red eyes. Ford lived in the house for less than 5 days before he ran into the monster. Around the evening of May 2nd, Mrs. Ford was asleep on the couch in the living room while her husband and a friend were out hunting in the woods behind their house. They weren't like far. They were just kind of looking around.
Okay.
Mrs. Ford awoke to a big, hairy paw shooting through the window at her.
No.
She later told reporters, quote, "I saw the curtain moving on the front window and saw a hand sticking through the window. At first, I thought it was a bear paw, but it didn't look like that. It had heavy hair all over it and had claws." She goes on to say, "I could see its eyes. They looked like coals of fire, real red. It didn't make any noise except you could hear it breathing." Mrs. Ford screamed loud enough that her husband and his friend ran back to the house to find the creature and proceed to shoot at it.
Oh, they did find it. It stayed after she screamed?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I said, they weren't far. Or if they were running back, it was running away as they were running back.
Okay.
Something like that. Mr. Ford described the animal as being about 6 feet tall, black, and hairy. It runs on its hind legs, but is too fast to be a bear. Plus, I don't think bears run on their hind legs.
I don't think so either, but bears can run fast.
Yeah. I mean, bears do get up on their hind legs to get like big and scaly,
Yeah.
but I don't think to run, no.
They would look so cute running like that.
They would. After Ford shot at the animal, they went to get Constable Ernest Walraven. Walraven had searched the property, but only found some large tracks that were similar to a cat's. So everywhere I read, it looked like it had 3 toes, not like a human foot.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know.
Does it have little toe beans like a cat?
Well, no one's ever really caught it, so they don't know.
But they have the prints. They can see the prints.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Okay.
They didn't get into its toe beans. It was hard to determine if some of the damage on the house was because the house was old or caused by the mysterious creature. But that one interaction wasn't the last sighting of this beast. The Fords also reported the monster came back a couple nights later and attacked Mr. Ford while he was standing on his front porch. Ford claimed he was climbing up some steps on the side of the porch when the thing grabbed him and pulled him down. He managed to get away and he ran right through the door. He later told reporters, quote, "I was moving so fast, I didn't stop to open the door. I just ran through it."
I picture like the cartoon
Yeah,
cutout.
exactly. Ford was taken to a hospital to care for his injuries, and it was determined he had not been drinking. Ford had 3 scratches, 2 on his arm and 1 on his side. When reporters first came to the home, they noticed a U-Haul in Ford's driveway. The family was moving out.
Oh.
He said, quote, "A man can't live with his family in a house where animals stick their paws through windows." I'm like, so fair.
I mean, yeah, valid.
The story spread like wildfire across the area, then across the state, the country, and eventually the world.
Ooh.
Some people thought it was a joke. Others thought it was an animal that had escaped from a traveling circus that was recently in the area.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Curious people would prowl around the Ford property during the day, looking at marks left by the monster. The Miller County Sheriff's Office had to warn people to stay away from the house. Law enforcement feared that young men out hunting the creature would accidentally shoot each other. They warned that anyone that was caught with a gun near the area would be arrested. Huh, gun control. Crazy.
In the South.
What? Maybe that's what we need to put it in terms of. Well, we don't want you guys to accidentally shoot each other.
I don't think they'd care.
Anyway, the next big story happened a couple of weeks later, around May 25th. D.C. Woods Jr., Wilma Woods, and Mrs. R.H. Sedgrass were driving home from Shreveport, Louisiana to Texarkana when a large hairy creature crossed US 71 right in front of their car. The Woods and Mrs. Sedgrass described the creature as being stooped with long, dark hair and running upright across the highway. Mr. Woods said that it looked like a giant monkey and appeared to weigh more than 200 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
He also told reporters, quote, "It was really moving fast across the highway, faster than a man. Its arms swung kind of like a monkey's. The thing didn't act like it even noticed us. It didn't look at the car."
And how tall was this thing?
It's anywhere between 7 to 10 feet, depending on who you ask.
So then it has to be really skinny. Because 7 to 10 feet
But
and
it's
only
200
weighing 200 pounds? Well, if you think about it, a grown man is typically 6-something, 200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're adding like a foot to 3 feet and they're still 200 pounds, that's kind of skinny.
Well, the drawings of him don't look like that.
Then I feel like he would have to weigh more than 200 pounds.
Well, 200 to 300, depending on who you ask.
Hmm.
So,
no, I feel like that's kind of
I don't know. I never
less
thought-
than I would think it would weigh if it were that tall.
Yeah. Well, now,
Like, how much does a bear weigh?
I mean, it looks like Bigfoot. Maybe it is skinny and it's just really hairy.
Because brown bears can weigh anywhere from 180 pounds to 1,300 pounds.
Well, I mean, this thing just looks like, I mean, it's lean.
Okay.
It looks like Bigfoot with red eyes.
Okay.
That's the best I can give you.
Okay.
Because I didn't think of that until you said it. Yeah. I also never understood how people could be like, yeah, he was around this height and weighed about this much. How the fuck do you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I think height is one thing, but when it comes to people's estimation of weight, I don't think they're very accurate.
No, I don't think so.
Because, like, I could easily see myself saying 200 pounds, thinking, like, oh, it's heavy.
Mhm.
200 pounds is heavy.
Yeah.
And it's big. But not associating the fact that someone who's over 6 feet tall and 200 pounds is most likely not going to be a large,
Yeah.
like a wide person. There
Right.
would be. But, like, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Until
Yeah.
you just said that.
Thank you.
I guess that's why it's called a legend.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mrs. Wood said that when she first heard the story about the monster, she thought it was a hoax. She said, quote, "Now I know it's true." But the sightings continued. Another family near Fouke reported seeing the creature while they were sitting out on their front porch. They described the creature to be about 7 feet tall, large, and hairy. It supposedly ran across the street and behind an old fertilizer plant and then to a wooded area. Officers searched the area but failed to turn up any sign of the creature. Soon, the Fouke Monster was all anyone was talking about, both in and outside of Fouke, Arkansas. Raymond Scoggins offered a $200 reward for the capture of the monster, alive, but he claimed that he had heard reports of this monster dating back 8 or 10 years, and we're in the early 1970s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Fouke Monster had supposedly been seen in this region since at least the 1800s and gained more traction in the 40s, 50s, and 60s in Jonesville. It used to be called the Jonesville Monster,
Oh, interesting.
which maybe is in Louisiana.
I don't know.
I don't know. When I was reading it, it was the way that they had it written, it was hard to tell if they were also saying, like, they were listing multiple things. And I was like, are both those things in Louisiana or is Louisiana part of the list?
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know, but Jonesville. But it didn't hit the big time until the early 1970s when it was turned into a pseudo-documentary called The Legend of Boggy Creek in 1972 and was actually a huge hit.
I have heard of Boggy Creek.
So yeah, because that's where it's near. The film is believed to have cost around $160,000 to make and grossed $20 million.
Oh my gosh.
Office. So it did really well.
Yeah.
There were other movies, but they never reached the same kind of notoriety. You had Return to Boggy Creek in 1977, not an intended sequel, just a different storyline, but still Boggy Creek.
Same location.
Boggy Creek 2, The Legend Continues. This was in 1985. This actually was a sequel because it was by the same guy. Boggy Creek, The Legend is True in 2010 went straight to video. The Legacy of Boggy Creek in 2011, again, straight to video. And then Boggy Creek Monster is an actual documentary that was in 2016.
Okay.
So you have plenty of options. Leslie Greer was sheriff in Miller County from 1967 to 1974, and he recalled hearing about the monster as far back as 1946. He said, quote, "I was campaigning for tax assessor and stopped to talk to a lady sitting on her front porch. She lived about halfway between Fouke and the Below Bridge. She told me that she saw some kind of animal go down in the field in a low, bushy place. She said it looked kind of like a man and walked like a man, but she didn't think it was a man." Excitement about the creature started to fade by 1974 and would wane in and out of headlines for the next 4 decades. Tracks were allegedly found by 2 brothers in Russellville, Arkansas in March of 1978. Sightings were also noted in Center Ridge, Arkansas, and in July of 1978, there was another sighting in Cressette, Arkansas. My bad if I pronounced all those wrong. This time, they were missing livestock and dogs had been attacked.
Oh.
In 1991, it supposedly had been seen jumping from a bridge. There were around 40 sightings in 1997, and in 1998, it supposedly was reported to have been sighted while crossing a dry creek bed about 5 miles away from Fouke. There have been sightings of the Fouke monster right up into the 2000s, with the most notable encounters being along roads. In 2011, a married couple witnessed a stout, hairy creature with dirt and debris stuck to its hair, and a horrific stench crossed the road in front of their car. Also coming from 2011 is a report from a woman named Heather Owens, who was driving along at night on Williams Road and saw an 8-foot-tall, hairy man-like figure stand up and glare at her from behind a bale of hay in a field.
So when the people in the car said the stench, they were in their car
Yeah.
and they could still smell it.
I don't know. It didn't give details. I don't know if their windows were rolled down. I don't know.
So I'm just like, ooh, if it could permeate that's stinky.
No one else brought up the stench.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like maybe they're...
Maybe it was just them.
Maybe it was just them. Nose blind. The following year, in September of 2012, the creature was spotted again, this time along State Highway 237 near Fouke, where it was seen crossing a road in front of a car and described as being extremely muscular with very long legs. There were also stories commented on a Reddit post about the monster. Old Man for Chat 55533 said, quote, "My late uncle lived in Hope, Arkansas during the 60s to 80s. When he lived with me, we were talking about the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek. He shared a story about the hunt for the Fouke monster. He told me that he was with a couple of men who had bear dogs. The dogs got a scent of something, followed it, got to the woods in the Boggy Creek bottoms. The dogs wouldn't go any further, had their tails between their legs and whined, wanted to go back to the truck.
Oh.
The men who owned the dogs had never seen them act that way, and they were very disappointed with the dogs. My uncle never said he believed in the existence of the Fouke monster, but he also never said that it wasn't possible."
And you always have to trust your pets. If they're acting weird, trust that.
Right.
There's something weird going on.
So, theories and opinions.
Okay.
Less so theories, more so opinions.
Okay.
1 month after the Ford sighting, so back in 1971, Southern State College, which is now known as Southern Arkansas University, archaeologist Frank Schambach?
That sounds good.
Sure. I don't know. Determined that, quote, "there is a 99% chance the tracks are a hoax." According to Schambach, I don't know.
I think you just said it differently, but okay.
I know, but I like that way better. That one's the least fun. The tracks could not be from a species of ape, as claimed by witnesses, because they were from a 3-toed creature, whereas all primates, including hominids, including hominids, have 5 toes. In addition to the number of toes, Schmackenbach, I'm so sorry if Schmackenbach listens to this.
This is the 3rd different way we have said it.
I'm just trying to keep it lighthearted and fun.
Because mine's not.
Cited several other anomalies as part of his conclusion. The region had no history of primate activity, ruling out the possibility of the creature being the remnants of an indigenous species. All apes are completely diurnal, meaning they go out during the day, as the Fouke monster was reported to be nocturnal, so most of the sightings of him were at night. By 1986, the mayor of Fouke, Virgil Roberts, and former Miller County Sheriff Leslie Greer believed that the alleged Fouke monster tracks were man-made. Greer's working colleague at the time, Chief Deputy H.L. Phillips, said that he had not taken calls regarding the monster in years, so this was in 1986. He does not believe the creature exists, stating, quote, "I do not believe in it, but I'd say you don't argue with people who say they've seen it. Many were respectable and reasonable folks." On Reddit, Jenna B45 commented saying, "Over the years, I've heard that several locals have been accused of being the Fouke monster, dressing up as such, creating footprints, and scraping trees.
Interesting.
Even my dad's name has been brought into the conversation before. I don't think anyone will ever know the truth, but as far as my dad, I can assure you he wasn't ever involved, but like everyone else, especially the older generation, he has some stories. But my favorite quote came from someone commenting on a YouTube video on the news report about the monster, and they just said, "Think I'd move." But then, as I was looking for that one to make sure I had the wording right, I found this gem on the same video. And they said, I only got 4 words. "What in the Fouke?"
Nice.
And I was like,
Nice.
bravo.
Nice.
Bravo. What a great use of free will. In conclusion, with all of these sightings from so many different people, there has been quite a lot of speculation on what the so-called Fouke Monster or the Beast of Boggy Creek could be. Considering the 3-toed tracks that often turn up, it has been speculated that this could be an injured or deformed Bigfoot or an inbred population of creatures.
Interesting take. Okay.
There is also the idea that this is just legends, hoaxes, and overactive imaginations. But the people of Fouke don't shy away from their local legend, and starting in 2013, the Fouke Monster Festival, previously called the Boggy Creek
I
Festival,
love when places do things like this.
has been an annual event dedicated to discussions, presentations, and lore related to the creature and other similar monsters. Proceeds benefit the Fouke School District, and they have a local store called the Monster Mart that has a little section dedicated to Fouke Monster souvenirs.
Oh, I love that.
And I love that it goes to the school.
Yeah.
So even more of a reason, out of all the cryptids we talk about, we got the Woods Devil. That one's a favorite.
Okay.
Because I can just imagine them trying to hide behind a tree.
I know. It's so cute.
And then this one is another favorite, only because the way that they celebrate it is by donating money to schools.
Well, here's my thought about it. What if it is just a species of animals we have not discovered yet?
Oh, 100%. I'm like,
that's what I'm always saying. You can't say, oh, it's fake. Maybe it's real, and maybe it's just a species we haven't discovered.
Here's the thing. Having done this for a couple years now, and having looked into scary things in all 50 states, there is at least some Bigfoot-esque type thing almost in every state.
Yeah.
If not in every state.
Yes.
And so, logically speaking, it says to me that, what if it's just a creature, a species that we don't know of, and these are just its little subspecies?
Yes.
So it's not deformed. It's just, those are the 3-toed Bigfoots.
When were gorillas first discovered? Until 1847, we didn't know what a gorilla was.
We didn't know what a lot of things were.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It probably looked like some creepy cryptid-y thing back then, because it's like this thing that we haven't seen before.
Right.
And then we identify it, and it becomes an animal that everyone knows. That's what these Bigfoots are. Big feet? Whatever they may be.
Or is it like deer, where deer is also plural for deer?
Moose.
Fish.
We could go on. But that's why I'm like, it's an animal. We just haven't discovered it yet.
I can see that.
We haven't studied it yet, and we haven't done anything like that yet.
They're very elusive.
They are very elusive.
So, I don't know. Maybe
I mean, okay, you think about it. How much of the United States is forested?
A lot.
A lot. There's your answer.
Yeah, maybe, there are some places we physically cannot go.
Yes.
It's impossible to get to, but maybe they can.
Right.
And that's where they are.
That's what I'm saying.
I like it.
Thank you. I like your story.
Thanks. Yeah. The Fouke. The only time the Fouke Monster was ever violent was with that first guy.
Yeah.
But there was also one of the police officers.
Maybe he was having a bad day.
One of the police officers had said something about maybe a panther living under the porch, making its den under there.
Okay.
And
now that sounds far-fetched.
Well, not really.
Kind of. Are there panthers
in Arkansas?
Yeah.
I assume so.
Okay.
There's panthers in places that one wouldn't think there would be panthers. Because I have this thought all the time.
Is it North Carolina's their team, the Panthers?
Yes.
So there must be panthers in North Carolina.
I would hope so.
That's bad advertising.
Yeah. I think there's panthers in Florida.
Well, that makes sense to me, though, because it's Florida.
I don't know. A large cat.
Yeah.
Whether it's a cougar, mountain lion, whatever. A large, aggressive, angry cat that would be pissed if a family came in and was like, here's my house. And they're like, no, this is my den. And then I could see it maybe pawing its way into a window trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay.
And then if he's on the porch, I could see the monster grabbing a cat, attacking him.
Okay. I can see it now that you've explained.
But that's the only one that I'm Actually, that's a pretty logical explanation of what that could be. I don't know about the whole red eyes thing, though.
I mean, sometimes if light reflects a certain way, it could make eyes look red.
I thought it, like anytime I see like a cat, it's always like yellow or whatever.
I don't know. Sometimes you take a picture and it gives you red eyes. Maybe it's just how its eyes are. The cones and the rods.
I don't know. But yeah, so the Fouke Monster.
Fouke Monster.
Not the Fouke Monster.
Not the Fouke Monster.
No. And I put it even phonetically in here. Fouke. And I'm sure someone's going to get mad that I said it wrong, but
It's what online told us.
It's what online said, so yell at them.
Yeah.
And I didn't see any comments that
Or
said
we'll
you
say, "What
said
the
it
Fouke?"
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
What the Fouke? That was so clever. It's like, damn, people are just so funny. What's spooky to you, porn, Lauren?
So like you said at the intro, I used Murderpedia for a little bit of this, so we know that there's going to be a murder.
Someone gets murdered.
James Big Jim Waybern Hall, Big Jim was a nickname,
I assume.
was born on January 28th, 1921 in Arkansas. He also had the nickname Red due to his wavy red hair.
1921.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we both have big creatures that had red hair. Or red eyes. Or red.
Red. They are related to the color red.
Yes.
Hall was one of 10 children
Damn!
born to strict parents Samuel Hall and Eva Lorraine Ingram Hall. His father was a preacher and a farmer. Samuel was physically and psychologically abusive, though, mainly towards Hall, and because of that, from a young age, Hall began running away from home. As a boy, around the age of 12 or 13, Hall suffered a brain injury, which was most likely due to a beating that he had gotten from his father.
Aww.
When the injury had occurred, he was unconscious for, quote, an hour or so.
Damn.
He was sick for several days following that and didn't recover for 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, no.
Those who knew him before said that he was never the same after. He would fly into fits of rage for no apparent reason. He also exhibited physical signs of a neurological issue. He walked at a fast pace and leaned towards the left when he walked.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Also, all of the hair on his legs were gray. Isn't that interesting?
That's weird.
Yeah. Hall also didn't like farming and didn't want to follow in his father's footsteps. He knew he would rather be driving a taxi cab, which is exactly what he did.
Good for him. Follow your dreams.
Hall was often described as friendly and likable, though not well educated. He was nice looking and always had a smile. Not much is known about, more about his early life, but we know that when he was 22 in 1943, he was drafted by the Navy. He tried everything he could to get out of military service, and after only 8 weeks of training, he was dishonorably discharged.
Okay.
Don't know why, but there you go.
I mean, I get why you don't want to go to war.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And think of the time.
And we were in World
It's
War II.
1943.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were smack dab in the middle of that.
Yeah. So, can see why he was maybe like, yeah, I don't want to
I don't
go."
wanna.
He first married a country girl and the two had a child. He wasn't abusive or violent towards her, but the two didn't last. He returned home to Little Rock, and just a few months later, on March 14th, 1944, he married 19-year-old Faye Renee Faye Clemens.
And he is...
At this time, next sentence, he would have been about 22 or 23 at the time.
Okay.
And so she was 19, so not a huge age difference.
So that's okay.
That was the first thing I saw when I was like 19. How old is Mr. Man? Yeah, he
Yes.
was about 23 or so.
Okay.
But their relationship was rocky. The two even had a brief separation in June of that year after having only been married for 3 months.
Yeesh.
And even during their short marriage, Hall had a habit of just taking off and drifting around the United States.
So kind of like what he did as a kid when things got difficult, when things got bad, his go-to coping is to run away.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah. Mackenzie.
Psych 101, baby.
On September 28th, Hall went to his father-in-law, so his wife's father's house, to
Mhm.
tell him that Faye had left him, deserted him 3 days earlier, and had headed to California. Her family didn't believe this for 1 second,
Highly suspect.
and the police were immediately notified about her leaving. But Faye was known to be a promiscuous woman
Oh.
and decided that she was probably just a runaway. So her missing persons case was closed after just a week.
Damn.
And this theory was even more supported when 2 months later, relatives received a Christmas card in the mail from Faye with her signature at the bottom. It had been postmarked from Bakersfield, California. Jim Hall, missing his wife, borrowed the card and envelope before cops could look at it and examine it. And wouldn't you know, he ended up misplacing it. So it was
Oh.
never able to be looked into.
Interesting.
Then on January 29th, 1945, an abandoned car was discovered by loggers in Washita County, just southwest of Little Rock. And I just want to say, Washita, I looked up the pronunciation. That is not how it's spelt. This town starts with an O.
Yeah.
I just want to say we do our due diligence.
Yeah.
So, back to this.
Okay.
Inside of the car, there was a dead man.
Wait. Okay. I got distracted.
I'll start over.
Please.
Okay.
Because I feel like I missed something.
Then on January 29th,
Okay.
1945,
Okay.
an abandoned car was discovered by loggers in Washita County,
Okay.
just southwest of Little Rock. Inside of the car, there was a dead man,
Oh.
slumped behind the wheel. He had a bullet in the heart from a .45 caliber. His fingerprints were run, and the man was identified as Carl Hamilton, a barber from Camden. It was determined that he had already been dead for a few days before he had been found. At this point, homicide detectives looked into his case and had no reason to connect Hamilton's murder with the disappearance of Faye.
Yeah, I'm not finding much reason either.
Right. Or in the detective's words, the case of the girl who ran away.
Ah.
Then just a few days later, on February 1st, another person in the Little Rock area went missing. So that's just like 2 days later.
Yeah.
E.C. Adams vanished while on his way to his job at a war plant. His car was eventually discovered outside of Fortis, which is northwest of Camden in Dallas County. When his car was found, authorities searched the surrounding area, where they eventually found the body of Adams in some nearby brush. He had one single bullet in his brain. That same day, trucker Doyle Mulheron was late, very late, for a scheduled meat delivery. Hours later, his vehicle was found near Stuttgart, 40-ish miles to the southeast of Little Rock in Arkansas County. His body was found in the surrounding area. He had been shot once in the head, and $125 of company cash had been stolen. In today's money, that would be about $2,322. That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
Police were stumped about what was happening and who could possibly be responsible, but they finally started to believe that all of the deaths were linked.
Yeah.
So between January and March, 3 motorists had been found shot dead in or near their cars, all abandoned on the side of the highway. So the hunt for the hitchhike killer began.
Oh.
They were doing what they could, interviewing
But
witnesses.
it was their cars. Oh, the hitchhikers killing them. Got it. Okay, continue. Sorry. I always get there. Remember.
We get there.
We get there.
They were doing what they could, interviewing witnesses and suspects, reviewing evidence, but they weren't getting anywhere. Even by March 2nd, my birthday, they were no closer to finding someone when James Hall was arrested in a Little Rock bar fight. He pled guilty to simple assault and was fined $106.90.
And this is our guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
In today's money, that would be $1,986.39.
That sucks.
This provided police with someone new to look into. And even more interest was put on Hall when an acquaintance told authorities about how they had loaned a car to Hall on January 28th.
Okay, I feel like I'm missing something here. This guy gets in a bar fight, and all of a sudden now they're thinking he murdered these people?
Yeah, because he was violent. And they don't have anyone. So they see this guy and they're like, all right, we'll look into you. And then they get a tip from this acquaintance.
Okay.
So this acquaintance told authorities how they had loaned a car to Hall on January 28th.
Mm-hmm.
The first murder took place on January 29th.
But if he's supposed to be the hitchhiker, he wouldn't have a car.
Listen.
Okay.
So back in January, when Hamilton was killed, Hall had borrowed a .45 caliber gun from another taxi driver, Lonnie Blaine. When Hall returned the gun, Blaine noticed that 2 shots had been fired. He immediately thought that Hall was responsible for the 2 missing, but he was afraid that somehow he would get in trouble, so he didn't say anything. But eventually, one of Blaine's relatives called the Arkansas State Police and told them about the borrowed gun. This tip led the authorities straight to Hall. The car that Hall had borrowed was searched, and sure enough, a loaded pistol was found in the glove compartment. Ballistic tests were able to reveal that the bullet had been the one that had killed Carl Hamilton, the barber. So just because it says the hitchhiker killer, it doesn't mean that he's only the one getting into cars.
Well, then that's a terrible name.
Well, a hitchhiker, you're picking up people,
But these people were found in their cars.
Mackenzie, I don't know.
That's why I'm confused.
I don't know. He borrowed a car. It was suspicious because now a gun's in the car and 2 bullets are missing from said gun. That was Lonnie's gun.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get that part. I'm hoping we figure out a little bit more about how they ended up in their own car and dead. If he had his own car.
Well, just in this one situation, he had his own car.
Okay.
You know you're able to get out of cars, too.
I know, but I'm going off of the hitchhiker thing, and so that it doesn't make sense.
I mean, you could get out of his car and hitchhike into another person's car. He's not hitchhiking to get places.
No, I know, but I would hope that that part would be explained, that he would purposely pull his car over, hide it, and pretend to hitchhike to kill people.
You don't really need to worry about the car fact. The fact is that he had a gun. He asked to borrow a car that had a gun in it.
Yes.
He uses said gun.
At least on the barber.
And then puts said gun back and returns car.
What led to this?
Led to what?
Him killing the barber.
I will get to that. He just wanted the gun from the car.
He borrowed the car to get the gun?
He knew a gun was in the car.
You did not say that.
I assume.
Oh.
I don't know for sure.
Why not just ask to borrow the gun?
Because that's so suspicious.
They're in Arkansas.
That's so suspicious.
How many stories do we say all the time where someone's like, yeah, they asked to borrow my gun, and they give it to them?
Yeah.
Right.
People aren't that smart. Okay, then on March 9th, 1945, a burned out car was found near Heber Springs in Cleburne County. I should have looked that one up. I didn't. An incinerated body was removed from the back seat.
And March 2nd is when he got arrested for the bar fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started to find out all the car stuff with the gun, and the gun matched
the ballistics that they found on the barber.
But not the other two.
Correct.
Okay.
Dental charts were able to reveal that the body that was found in the back seat was the body of J.D. Newcomb Jr., who had been from Little Rock. Because they were growing more and more suspicious of Hall, a search of his lodgings was conducted. Substantial quantities of ammunition and shaving gear stolen from Hamilton were found.
Which one's Hamilton?
The barber.
Okay. Well, we know he killed the barber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't know he killed the barber.
The ballistics didn't.
The ballistics matched the gun.
Oh. Okay.
So they knew the gun had killed him.
Yeah.
They knew that Hamilton had borrowed that Hall had borrowed the gun, but that's like circumstantial evidence at that point.
I see.
Now they're seeing ammunition and there's a shaving gear from Hamilton.
Right.
In Hall's like lodging.
Did he give him like a bad haircut?
I don't know. Mad at his barber.
I guess. Like, that's why I'm like, how did we get here?
Hall was picked up on March 15th in Little Rock and confessed to the series of murders that had been plaguing Little Rock.
Series? He confessed to all of them and they all had evidence for one?
Mm-hmm.
Stupid.
He also confessed that he had had a motive for money, but had only made $300. So his main reason for hitchhiking and getting in cars was to rob people, but he only made $300, which in today's money would be about $5,357.
So he got into people's car hoping to rob them.
Mm-hmm.
So he did hitchhike.
Yeah. He then led authorities to where he had buried his wife, where she had run away.
Well, that one was an obvious one.
I know.
He went from he ran away to all of a sudden she ran away.
I know.
I'm like, I don't think so, buddy.
He was surprised to learn that a farmer had actually found the skull of his wife months earlier.
And didn't say anything?
Nope.
What the fuck?
But upon retrieving the skull, dental records confirmed that it was Faye Renee.
First of all, it's just clicking to me that her name is Faye Renee. Second of all, what the fuck is wrong with people?
I know. Oh, here's a skull on my property. That wasn't there last week. Let me keep it.
It's just, there's so many parts about this that I'm just like, a lot of extra steps were taken for a result that wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
We also have to remember this was like 1945.
Which is also like, I keep forgetting, especially when you say like dental and like ballistics. I was like, they had ballistics in 1945?
Right. I mean, it's probably not as advanced as the ballistics we have today.
Sure. But even to have anything is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, but there were guns. It was war. I'm sure that made it a little bit easier to figure out.
Yeah. I guess they didn't live quite in the Stone Ages.
No, not quite.
Yeah. Okay.
They still had like some things.
Yeah.
So Hall was charged with his wife's murder on March 26, 1945. On March 29th, Hall had been committed to the State Hospital for Nervous Diseases for a 30-day psychiatric evaluation. Hall's trial for the first-degree murder of his wife, Faye Renee Clemens Hall, began on May 7, 1947 in Pulaski County's 1st Division, where it was presided over by Judge Lawrence C. Oughton. He entered both a plea of not guilty and a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity.
Okay.
Though he hated for people to think he was mentally ill, this was the defense that his defense tried to use during his trial.
Yeah.
At the trial, the psychiatric evaluation was spoken about by the prosecution. They also introduced testimony, one of those from the superintendent of the psychiatric hospital.
Okay.
They argued that Hall's first confession, where he confessed to the murders, was made voluntarily.
Okay.
The hospital also found him legally sane. The court deemed the superintendent's testimony as relevant and properly admitted. It did not violate any privileges or procedural rules. It was determined that Hall, quote, bore the burden of proving his insanity if he were to go forward with this insanity plea. So they're saying, you have been found legally sane.
Okay.
Now it is your job to prove to us that you are insane, if that's still the plea you want to go for.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yep.
Which would be insane.
Yeah. I'm trying to prove this. That should prove something.
Right. So by him trying to prove it, that would then make him insane. I think they just shot themselves in the foot with that one. Because it was me, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll try to prove it, I guess. If that's
yeah, right. Hall attempted to prove that he was legally insane, but his defense wasn't able to present convincing evidence that he met the legal criteria for insanity. So examples are inability to distinguish right from wrong or inability to control behavior. So they tried to show that he didn't have these two, but they weren't able to show that because he's not insane.
He did have it. He was able to tell
right. He was able to tell right from wrong. He was able to control his behavior.
Got it.
Furthermore, the confession, discovery of her remains, and supporting evidence all met the proof that a homicide had indeed occurred. So they're also trying to say
he admitted it.
Right. But you also have to have the proof and all the evidence and all that stuff.
I just don't understand people that admit it and then say not guilty.
Right.
I get it if it was a false confession, and I know that those happen, but this seems like he did it.
Yeah, he did it.
And he said he did it, and then he's like, just kidding, not guilty.
Well, not guilty due to reasons of insanity.
Oh, I guess.
So the trial took only 2 days.
Damn.
And on May 14th, 1945, Hall was convicted of murder and sentenced to death by electrocution.
Damn.
An appeal by his defense was put in around October 22nd, 1945, where his defense tried to challenge his admissibility of confessions, insanity defense, establishing corpus delicti, proof that a crime occurred, and expert testimony regarding his sanity when he confessed. So his team...
And this is just for his wife's murder, though.
Yeah.
This is not technically for any of the other ones.
Correct.
Oh, so I guess that, he just said that he killed her. But if they didn't actually prove it.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Interessante.
So that's why his team's trying to appeal this defense, saying, you need to prove all these things.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Though they tried to challenge these points, they lost.
Yeah.
And the court found no reversible legal errors, so the conviction and death sentence were affirmed.
And this is just for the wife?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I didn't think you could get the... never mind. It's Arkansas in 1945. Never mind.
What?
Because I thought that you could only get the death penalty if, it was more than one person or you were committing another crime and someone... But then I'm like, the rules for the death penalty probably were not as...
Oh, they've changed so much since 1945.
Right. So because of that, it made me think, oh, well, it's 1945 in Arkansas.
Right.
You can kill one person and get the death penalty.
Yeah.
So
pretty much, yeah. On January 4th, 1946, Hall was all smiles, laughing and joking as he was led to the electric chair.
Wow. Talk about swift justice.
I know.
Bam.
They're
all within a year.
Boys, I'm not afraid, he told them as they strapped him in and fastened the electrodes. I can take it. He died being known as the Arkansas Butcher and the Hitchhike Killer. Apparently, at one point while driving around with detectives, they said, "So you've killed about a dozen people?" Hall replied with, "It was more like 24 than 12.
What?
Quote, "The truth is, if I told you about every person I have killed, people wouldn't believe it," he told detectives. "There are so many I can't remember."
So that's what he was doing when he would run away.
That would make the most sense, yeah. But is that all? Back in 1945, it seems that Hall was convicted for all of his murders.
No, because he was literally only convicted for one.
Well, found for all of his murders. All of his victims were, confirmed.
Okay.
On October 30th, 1944, both Charles Nipper, 21, and Dr. M.E. Lambert, a Kansas osteopath, were both found fatally shot 3 times on a lonely road in McPherson County. Charles Nipper was in the Army, and it was speculated that he was trying to hitchhike back to his military base near Salinas, Kansas, and was picked up by Lambert.
Wait, what year was this?
1944.
Oh, and he died in 1945?
Hall died in 1945.
Okay.
Charles Nipper died in 1944.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that, because at first I thought he died after.
No.
And I was like, oh my God, he's still out there!
His ghost.
Okay.
Bill Cook, Nipper's cousin, said that they just believed a serial killer had killed him, but that was all they would ever know. That was all they ever knew.
Do you think they called it a serial killer then? Was that coined at that time?
Let's look it up. It was coined in the early 1970s. So the article that I was reading, I think it was talking about Bill Cook. And so he was talking about what happened back then in present day.
So he used that term.
He used the term serial killer.
Okay,
but I guess they probably were told that he was killed by a killer, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's using the current day term because he's talking about it in current day.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. So Hall was actually questioned by Kansas authorities about his involvement in the murders of Nipper and Lambert, but he wasn't charged with anything. When it all finally came out that Hall was arrested and what he was arrested for, lawmen from all over were coming to talk to Hall about other unsolved murders in their areas.
Uh-oh.
And Hall did talk openly about certain killings. He confessed to killing a woman in Salinas, Kansas in 1938, a man in San Marcos, Texas in 1944, 10 migrant workers in Arizona from 1938 to 1944. But on others, he would only offer clues, then decline to talk more on that person or subject.
So you got to be careful with those because then you might run into the Henry Lee Lucas situation where like he's confessing to hundreds of murders that he had absolutely nothing to do with. And
Right.
so those cases get closed
Mm-hmm.
when really they didn't actually catch
Right.
the person who did it.
Yeah. So if we're going off of just these 10 migrant workers, the man and the woman, that's already 12 in 1938 alone. And that's not including his wife and the 3 other men
He
found.
would have only been 15.
In
No.
1938?
Sorry. He'd been 18?
It would have been about 17, 18.
Still, that's young.
I mean, that is young, but
So you got to wonder, truly then, when he was running away as a kid,
yeah,
is that when it started?
it could very well have been.
That's crazy.
And though he never confessed to the murder of Nipper and Lambert, Janie Jones, a writer who had written books on Hall, said that their murders fit his motive and pattern. Hall would travel the country hitchhiking. When people stopped to pick him up and give him a ride, he would kill them for their money. Though many who he tried to rob didn't have much money. If that was the case, he would steal something else instead. The most he ever got from someone was the 126. He would kill someone for a carton of cigarettes or something he could turn around and sell for $5. So if he wasn't getting money, he was stealing something else that he could sell to get money.
This doesn't seem like a very lucrative business plan.
No, not at all. There have been multiple books written about Hall. There's even a song called Just 13 Steps written about him as well.
Oh,
I did not listen to it yet, but we can listen afterwards.
okay.
So unfortunately, there's not like a ton of info on this guy, and a lot of it you would need to read the books. And because we recorded our last episode on Sunday and we're recording this 4 days later, none of the books would have come in on time. So there's no way I could do that. And also, the interesting fact is that though he was committing all of these horrible crimes, there was a pretty big war going on. So a lot of the front page papers and a lot of the papers were
Word
talking about this big
that.
war, not so much the man who was killing people back at home.
Local news wasn't exactly a priority.
Right. So that's why there's not a ton known about this guy. So he
Interesting.
could really be one of these like prolific serial killers,
Sure.
like Bundy Dahmer level.
Yeah.
But we're never going to know because at the time, the World War was a little bit more important than.
And we didn't
this guy.
technically know of serial killers then.
Right.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So we can say for sure, it seems like the 3 people you named that were found in their cars plus his wife.
Correct.
We're pretty sure the 2 other people.
Nipper and Lambert.
Yep.
Pretty sure.
And then maybe all the other people. That
Yeah, maybe like 20 other people.
So anywhere between 4 and 20.
Yeah. 20 plus.
20 plus.
So that is James Waybern Hall.
Never heard of him.
Me either. That's what I'm saying. It's so weird. Because he could potentially be like this dude who killed a ton of people.
Yeah.
But we will never know because the newspapers weren't focused on him at the time.
But like I get that too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like makes sense. Priorities were a little different.
A little bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be.
I'll
So
be.
really, he technically only got charged with his wife's murder.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if I were to look up the names of the other people, it might say that they were murdered by him.
They would probably be related to him somehow, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I always wondered how that worked because like there's those cases you hear about that they can definitely get them convicted on this one, but the other one is a little bit more circumstantial, so they only focus on that one.
Right.
The other one that's circumstantial, how do you close that case then? Do you just close it?
Sometimes you can't. Like what I've read and like when we've been doing our research and all of this, like
Mhm.
sometimes it just doesn't close. And the families are like 99% sure that's the person who did it. But I mean, they're getting at least the justice that they can because the person who they think did it is going to jail.
Right. Can you close it by like,
I think you can.
because you can close it without having found.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so because I think that could also be why all of these other places were coming with like their unsolved murders to be like, let's try to close this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the legality of it all, but I'm pretty sure like you could, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
And then it would probably just be put in there that possibly done by.
Yeah.
But if they don't have, if it was never convicted.
Yeah, I think they still would close them in that case.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah.
Wow. That went from like 0 to 100.
I know. I know. That's
like,
how I felt about it
why
too.
did he get, what made him so mad?
I think it was that brain injury.
But then later on you said that people thought he was nice.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think a lot of it did stem from the brain injury because beforehand he wouldn't
And
like
probably the child abuse.
The brain injury from the child abuse,
Yeah.
because beforehand, he, like, never had rage or any anger issues or anything,
Right.
and then after this, all of a sudden, he's lashing out for no reason.
Is it no reason, or is it deemed no reason for the time? Because if your dad's
Oh,
beating the shit out of
That's a good
you,
question. I don't know.
you know,
Yeah.
I feel like perception is always.
Yeah.
And I gotta wonder what happened to him on those times that he ran away. Maybe that's like how he figured out how to, like, quote, survive,
Mhm.
you know? Like,
Maybe that's why he always needed money.
right, like that's how he did that whenever he ran away. So it wasn't like, I'm doing this so I can kill someone,
Mhm.
but more so, I'm gonna kill someone so I can get this thing.
Yeah.
And like that was why.
This person is standing in my way of the thing that I want,
Right.
and I will get through them how I can.
Right. So it's not like he ran away to, how they sneak off in the night.
Yeah.
He had the urge,
Yeah.
but it was just like for him, it was just
Opportunity.
opportunity. I guess, I mean, obviously we'll never know.
We'll never know.
It's crazy also how fast the trial went.
I know!
Like,
2 days. 2 days for the
crazy.
trial. You're arrested in March.
Yeah.
Your trial's in May. Your appeal's in October, and you're dead in January.
That's nuts.
Right?
I wonder how much we could get accomplished if justice was always that swift.
I mean, also, they kind of based off a lot of circumstantial evidence. Times have changed slightly.
Times have changed. We have far better technology. We can maybe make it swift.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever gone wrong by just rushing through things.
Nothing.
Nothing
That's
at
the
all.
way that we know it's going to succeed.
Yeah, nothing at all has ever come from that.
No.
So, well, very nicely done.
Thank you.
A bit confusing, but
I was confused as well.
but we got there in the
With
end.
my limited amount of information that I had to weave together.
Like, why the fuck does he have this car? Who's hitchhiking? Because then these people are found in their cars.
Yeah. But we got there.
We got there.
We got there in the end.
Again, that's why I'm thinking maybe it was more opportunistic. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he either was hitchhiking or he picked them up. Like, maybe it was both,
Could be. Could be.
Wow. I guess you really never know. Like, I've known plenty of people that, like, need to go for a walk to, like, cool off. And now I'm going to be like, you going to go kill somebody?
What were you doing on your walk to cool off?
Hey, how cooled off did you need to get?
How cooled off are you now?
Right. Well, damn. There you go.
There you go. So, if you like us, rate and review us.
Always.
Let us know, and we'll send you stickers.
Is there anything going on next week that we need to say woohoo for? Since we're recording this week instead of next week?
I don't know.
I think we're good on woohoos.
I think we are too.
Like I said, it's hard to celebrate Independence Day right now. I don't feel very independent.
I don't either.
But I did sing the song every time I typed in the word independence.
INDEPENDENT. For anyone else who needs to know. All right, stay scary.
Stay safe.